Hello everybody, it's Colin Ellis here and welcome to the final Culture and Coffee podcast for 2023. Now if this is the first one you're listening to, then you might want to go back and listen to the previous 40. I don't want to spoil anything, no you really don't. You don't need to do that at all. In fact, this is the first one. Thank you. Thank you for joining in. Over the course of the last year, what I've been doing is having a cup of coffee and talking about something related to culture. I know there's really no magic science in that name. There's nothing abstract. It is what it is. It's culture and coffee. So it's a subject that I can talk about over a cup of coffee. And on this episode, I'm going to not only pronounce things incorrectly, as I've just started to do, but I'm going to talk about how you can switch off from it all, because this podcast is for Monday, the 19th of December. So we're not far away from Christmas if you celebrate it. Even if you don't celebrate it, you should still be switching off from it all. You should be finding time to switch off from it all. So I'm going to give you a few ideas, things you can do. 5. I'll give you 5. How about that? 5 things. And if some others come to me, then maybe it'll be more. But I'm aiming for 5. Now, normally I would choose a nice coffee and I'll talk you through the coffee and the notes and all of that. But given that it's just before Christmas, I'm combining the 2 drinks that I love, which is coffee and whiskey. Because today's coffee is an Irish coffee. Now, I don't want you to think that every Monday starts with an Irish coffee, if only it did. I was just thinking, that would be a good start. It wouldn't, though, would it? It would be a rubbish start. It's one of those things like, it'd be great to start the day with an Irish coffee. You get a little bit of a buzz, and then you're like, this is a really, really bad habit, and I need to stop it immediately. I'm having an Irish coffee, which could be a massive mistake. Now, if you don't know what an Irish coffee is, let me tell you. I've had a few. So I like an Irish coffee every now and again, usually at a weekend, obviously, for obvious reasons. I also like a hot toddy. So a hot toddy is, certainly the way that it used to be made for me when I was growing up and the way that I still make it a hot toddy, which is when you're feeling sick, right? Which sounds like an excuse to drink whiskey at any time. I'm feeling a bit throaty, particularly after they walk off stage. Colin, can I get you anything? A bottle of water or maybe a hot drink? I was like, can you make me a hot toddy? What's a hot toddy? Well, it's a spoonful of brown sugar, some honey, whiskey and hot water. Yeah, thanks very much. That'd be lovely. So that's a hot toddy. And an Irish coffee, again, a little spoonful of brown sugar in the glass. Then you're going to add a little bit of whiskey. It's got to be an Irish whiskey, so it's got to be a Bushmills from Northern Ireland or a Jameson's from Southern Ireland. I'll use Jameson's, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then it's hot water. It's hot coffee. So I always drink my Irish coffees hot, and then it's cream on top. So I'm just going to have a taste of this because it's been standing here a while. All right. So the first thing you need to know is I put way too much whiskey in. Otherwise, actually, the aftertaste is really quite smooth with the cream on top. I'm just going to have just another sip. It's going to kickstart my Monday, this, isn't it? Oh, my goodness. Wow. It's probably watered down. So, yes, so that's how you make an Irish coffee. Now, when I'm making an Irish coffee, I use Jameson's whiskey. Now, Jameson's, so there's a difference between single malt whiskies. This is turning into the whiskey culture and whiskey show. There's a difference between single malt whiskies so the Irish whiskey is spelled with an E, so Whiskey, which is the same if you have bourbon, all right, which is different to Scotch. Scotch is spelled, with Whisky. And just bear with me, people who don't like whiskey. You might be interested in this, actually. You can then go and present yourself as a whiskey connoisseur. It's like, you drink whiskey? It's like, no, it's this boring guy talking about it on a podcast. So single malt whiskey, right, firstly it has to be made from malted barley. And it has to be, it's just strict rules around it, for those of you who like whiskey. It has to be distilled into a copper pot still, they're called, and then aged for a minimum of 3 years in an oak cask, right? Yes, it's like feta from Greece and champagne from France, right? And so if it's a single malt Scotch, and you can make single malts, kind of anywhere, but it's got to be copper pot still, 3 years, oak cast. The other thing about single malt Scotch is it's generally distilled twice, and I won't bore you with the details, but basically it goes through the process twice to remove any impurities. Whereas for the Irish whiskies, it's slightly different. All right, so still made malted barley, generally copper pot still, right? But they also can use single pot stills, which is a slightly different mechanism. All right, let's just leave it at that. But you can also use unmalted barley. It doesn't have to just be malted barley. So essentially, there are less rules. But the key thing, and this is why I like Jameson's, is it's triple distilled, right? So it's a blend, so it's a mix of different whiskies, and it's triple distilled. So essentially, it's put through the process 3 times to remove any impurities. So every now and again, people will see whiskey on my LinkedIn profile or my Twitter profile or whatever it might be, and like, oh, I don't drink whiskey, what should I start with? I always say, if you're going to try something, quality over quantity. Same with coffee, right? Quality over quantity. Jameson's great because it's so smooth. It's so very, very smooth. It doesn't, sometimes when you have if you like drink a spirit, it's like, whoa, blew my socks off. Jameson's isn't like that. So you can have it, with just a little bit of water. So yes, anyway, so a Jameson whiskey. The coffee, by the way, is a Peruvian Guayacan, which is roasted by my local roastery. For those of you who listen to the podcast, it's called Wide Open Road. And when the wind's blowing in a certain direction, which it's not early this morning, slight chill in the air, but it's not blowing this way, so I can't smell the coffee being roasted. Anyway, take time off. Yeah, take time off to drink. So yes, let's talk about ways that you can take a break from work, and taking time off is the first way that you can take a break from work. It sounds like the most obvious thing to say. Oh, I want to take a break. Well, take time off. It's not always that easy. Now, if you're listening in America, and I know for a fact 13% of my audience is in America, not that I'm nerding out on the stats or desperate for any kind of attention internationally, but it's harder for you because you get literally like 2 weeks off a year. And I know you have a bunch of public holidays, but like 2 weeks. So if, the first way to take a break from work is to take time off. Now, that means planning it in. That means actually saying, for this week, between the 5th and the, whatever it is, the 10th of January, I'm going to be taking a week off. And the great thing about kind of getting it in your calendar, and you're going to block it out in your calendar, and it's going to say holiday, right? And you want to make it a holiday. It's something to look forward to, right? If you've ever booked time off, you're like, ooh, I can't wait to go and do that thing, right? It's a fun project to plan, not a rubbish project like you do in work. No, listen, there's some good projects. I've worked on some good projects in my time. Some rubbish ones as well, though, right? There's some pet projects that you're just like, ugh, why are we doing this? But whereas a holiday is a fun project to plan. It's something that, and you're always, like, very few people just I've got a mate, Cam, who him and his girlfriend just winged a trip to, I think it was Vietnam. Cam, if you listen, I'm sorry. Vietnam or Asia. It was Asia somewhere. They just went with nothing. The passport, I think their wallet, I think their phone, and that was it. And I was like, firstly, that's amazing. Secondly, it's slightly bonkers. And thirdly, did you enjoy it? And they loved it, and they had a great time. But I can't, there's no way I can do that. I like the planning. I love that, what we're going to pack, or where we're going to go. Now, some, mainly my wife, would say, oh, we cram too much into these holidays. Like, because you don't, like, and especially recently, right? We don't get to travel very much. So if I'm traveling, I want to see stuff. I want to go to places. But I guess the point that I'm making here is it gives you something to think about at the weekend that isn't work. Because like, oh, we can go here, we can see that, we can do this, we can blah, 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 blah. We spend a lot of time figuring out how we can avoid our own kids on holiday. Anyone else do that? Like, I love them. Don't get me wrong, I love them. They're great in small doses, but yeah, they're almost at the age where they should be thinking about leaving. There'll be some of you listening to this podcast who kind of amass leave days as if you're waiting for the end of days, It's just like, I remember my last permanent job, I had a guy who had 40, I think it was 44, 46, it was 46 leave days. And I was like, Graham, what are you doing with your leave days? He was just like, oh yeah, they're just, I never get chance for a break. I'm like, yeah, you do. You totally do. And I want you to take one because you're really stressed. Because you shouted at Jenny in the meeting and that's not cool, so I want you to take it away. But like he's waiting for the end of days. It's like, right, we've got 40 days to live. And he's like, ha, 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 ha. Well, I won't be coming to work for those 40 days because I've got the leave. Whatever, Graham. So that's your first tip, is actually take time off. Make sure you plan it in, block it out in your calendar, all of those things, right? And when you've done that, here's the second tip, which you definitely should do, is when you go on holiday, you should create a rule in Outlook that sends all of your emails to trash. Now, bear with me, because it sounds like an outlandish suggestion, and you think mistakenly you're going to get in trouble. Even if you're a CEO listening to this, you won't. Trust me. Many people have done this. So I wrote about this in Culture Hacks a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's a great Christmas gift for someone, a loved one or a friend. Shameless, terrible. So you can do it. Anybody can do this. Anybody can do it. So create a rule. So you want to master your email in the new year. You've definitely got to do that. You don't need permission to do it. All you need to do is set up a rule. If you don't know how to use rules in Outlook, watch a YouTube video. You watch enough crap on the TV and you won't watch a 5-minute YouTube video about something that can fundamentally change the way that you return to work after a holiday. Go do it. Go do it. You don't want to be swamped with emails when you come back. You definitely don't want that. So you're going to set up a rule, right? You don't want to be checking your email on the beach. Aussie, Kiwi listeners, this is our summer, right? You don't want to be doing that. Europeans going skiing, you don't want to be sat with that amazing view over Uber Salzburg or wherever you are, right? You don't want to be sat with that amazing view scrolling through your emails. Don't be that. Don't be that person. Ugh. Enjoy the view. Enjoy the time off. And the best way to do it is send your emails to trash. Or, better still, uninstall the email app off your phone. Yeah, so you don't need permission to do that either. You can totally do. You're on holiday. Now, of course, if you're on call, that's different. But if you're on call, you're not really on holiday. For everyone else, CEO, CFO, doesn't matter what your job title is, uninstall the email app. You don't need it on there. Then you're not tempted. If you're one of those persons that, kind of picks up their phone all of the time. Now, with the rule, what you're going to do, because you want to be a little bit polite when you have your rule, right? So you're gonna create your out of office email, and it's going to say something like, "Thanks so much for your email. I'm currently on leave until the 10th of January. During that time, all emails will be deleted. I'm doing this to ensure that I don't feel overwhelmed when I return to work. When I return, I'll keep the first 2 days free for people to come and see me and brief me about what's been happening while I'm away. P.S. You should do the same. Thank you very much. Done." So this is something I used to do. I did a culture program. I think it was the year before last. It was in between. I managed to get out of Australia very, very briefly to New Zealand. And a CFO tried it. And he posted about it on LinkedIn because he just said it was a game changer. Like, fair play to him as one of the senior managers. And then he told all of the other senior directors that that's what he'd done and that they were going to do the same, which I thought was awesome. So yes, don't be that person checking your email on the beach. I know it's hard, right? But my third tip, so that's your second tip. The third tip is have a device-free week. Have you ever done a digital detox? I'm going to have to have another sip of this coffee, sorry. I swear to God, as I drink more of it, I can taste the whiskey more and more. It's the 3 seconds afterwards I really enjoy it. It's just way too much whiskey in there. I didn't really measure out properly. There's at least half of that is whiskey. Have a device-free week. So if you've never done a digital detox, you should totally do it. Now, there's always that one person, I like to read books on my Kindle. All right, whatever. Buy a book. But yes, I know they're more expensive, but you can then pass the gift on to somebody else. Leave it in an op shop or a charity shop. Gift it to somebody else when you've read it. But have a device-free week. Don't look at the phone. Don't look at the tablet. The first 2 days feels really weird. It feels like your arm's been cut off or something. You're like, I don't know what to do with myself. Yeah, this is how sad we've become. So buy a book, buy a magazine instead. Don't read your Kindle. If you're doing something with the family, right, you got to be, present. So stick your phone on flight mode during dinners and stuff like that. So when you get your phone out, you see that it's on flight mode, you're like, oh yeah, it's on flight mode for a reason. Don't just turn it off. It's like those people that use those apps to block other apps on their phone rather than just, it's good, right? But just don't turn that blocking app off. And like, well, I'll just turn it off while I look at Instagram for 5 minutes. Don't do that. It sounds really preachy, doesn't it? I'm sorry. It's not meant to be. These are just suggestions. They're not orders. I don't wish to threaten you, but turn your device off. God, you see, kids are bad on devices. They get it from you. They do. Most people complain about Zoom fatigue. I'm so tired. I'm on back-to-back Zoom calls all day long. And then sit and stare at the phone when they're on holiday. I saw someone in the park. I walked past, beautiful day here today. It's been 24 degrees. Lovely. Right, it's going to be 27 degrees and sunny on Christmas Day. How about you? And beautiful. And a friend was there. A friend was talking, and she was just on her phone. I'm like, be present. Your brain needs a break. That's the other thing about kind of having a device-free week. It does. It just needs a bit of a refresh. Your eyes need a bit of a refresh. It's good. It's good. It's liberating. Honestly, it is. I try to do it. It's hard when you work for yourself. Here come my excuses. When you work for yourself, there's a need to keep an eye on the email. But I always take 7 days off, right? And that 7 days will be starting, pretty much from the 23rd. I'll take until my daughter's birthday on the 30th, and then come back New Year's Eve. And I put my out of office on and do all of those things. It's worth it. The fourth thing, and this is more for when you're back in work, right? This is a little, kind of how do you get a break from work when you're back in work, is you need to make time to procrastinate. So there was research done a few years back, and, it found that 30% of the world are chronic procrastinators at one time or another. And I think that's fair. Even people like me, how superior did that sound? Even people like me procrastinate. No, but let me get back on track of what I was trying to say. So I teach productivity, right? And I teach people how to be productive. I teach teams how to be productive. But you still have those moments, right? Where I start looking at something, then all of a sudden 30 minutes have elapsed. And how do I do that? But, one of the things that I used to do, and one of the things I still do actually, is I find ways to procrastinate, because your brain, as I said before about, kind of not looking at the devices, your brain needs a break from work. You can only be productive if you take time off during your day. Now, of course, the obvious things to do is morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea. Everybody should have 45 minutes blocked out for lunch. Everybody. And this is one of the things I always get teams to agree before they leave my culture workshops about some of the things they're going to do differently. And they always agree we're going to do 45 minutes for lunch, and it's going to be 12:30 to 1:15. I get them to agree a time, and then everybody blocks it out of their calendar. Now, crucially, what you can't do in your 45 minutes is check your email. So you can check Facebook, you can go on Instagram. I prefer it if you took a screen break. You can do that. You can do a crossword. If you're in the office, you can buy some cheap board games from local op shop and do board game. I worked with one organisation, they had a jigsaw in the kitchen. When I went back to see them, they got a bunch of board games and they did jigsaw. And people would just come in and add into the jigsaw, and that was really cool. Just kind of find ways to have a break. Just need to walk away, get a cup of tea, go to the bathroom 20 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes at lunch, 20 minutes in the afternoon. What you don't want to do is overwork. If you have to work later, you want to be good at prioritizing your work. That's another podcast. I've already done that one. So go back and listen to prioritization. Just search Culture and Coffee podcast, prioritization. It's there, right? So you want to know what are the most important things you've got to do. But scientists reckon we're only productive between 3 and 6 hours a day anyway, in total. So if you're having to concentrate making dinner, that's in that 3 to 6 hours. So you want to make the most of it. And so by planning in time for procrastination, you're kind of prioritizing giving your brain a break so that you can fully concentrate and be productive on those other things. So that's the fourth thing. And then the last thing, which is something that I've arranged in previous jobs, it's something that I know some of my clients have done, which links to the one that I've just talking about, and that's starting a meditation practice. Now, some teams that I've worked with have actually introduced this as a way of taking a break from work, and they've done 20 minutes, they've done 30 minutes of meditation in a meeting room, and you don't have to lie on yoga mats or anything like that. You don't have to have kind of, Tibetan music playing. Like, there's still this new age kind of view of meditation when literally you're just giving your brain a break, right? As you can see, that's kind of been all the way through this, giving your brain a break, giving yourself a break, right? So meditation practice, a great way to use your lunch hour, have your lunch first, then do some meditation to give your body time to digest the food before you rush back and crack on again. I used to meditate in my car, which makes me sound like a lunatic, but there was no quiet space for me to actually meditate. The only quiet space we as a team designated we called it the library. We made a quiet, I think I might have talked about this in a past podcast. I wanted a place for quiet work, and we had an open plan office, and I wasn't allowed to change the open plan office, even though nonsense. Not a place for productive work, open plan. So they said, there's no quiet space. And I was like, right, I'm going to book out a meeting room for a year. They were like, you can't do that. So obviously I did do that. We called it the library. We put textbooks in there. You weren't allowed to eat in there. You could take a glass of water, not a bottle. No one's sucking on bottles in meeting rooms. And you could go in there to do quiet work. No one could use a phone. But that was the only quiet room that I had in the office. So I couldn't go in there and meditate when people were working. I get distracted by the clicky clack of keys. So I used to sit in my car and meditate. And then one day my boss came up and knocked on the window and asked if she could have a word. She wasn't concerned about my mental health because I told her that I'd meditate in my car. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work if she can come and tap on my window in the car park. So I used to drive to a place by the river. It was about 5 minutes away. And I was fortunate I had a car park spot. But I had a little meditation practice. Every lunchtime I would go and do 20 minutes in the car. It really helps with focus. I think if you fall asleep, that's okay, because that's you just kind of, obviously that's your body saying, hey, we're tired, we should go to bed earlier. Or else you've got too much on your plate and you need to carve out some more focus time where you can just get into a flow state on a particular piece of work. But you get better at it. You train yourself so that you don't fall asleep and you get through to the end of your actual meditation routine. Now, if you've got kids, you're going to fall asleep. Young kids especially, you're going to fall asleep every time, and that's okay. That's absolutely fine. So a little meditation practice, again, great way of taking a break from work, great way of switching off. If you can find others that want to do it with you, even better. Even better, one of my clients, they did it over Zoom during COVID, which I thought was fab. I use an app called Headspace. I've done 10, 15 minute meditation with all manner of employees in all manner of industries and in different countries around the world, and it always is welcomed. It's always welcomed. So that's something that you can do now. Ultimately, you need to take a break from work. There's no way you can keep... If you got to the end of the year and you're absolutely drained, you're exhausted, you can't wait for the end of the year, that's your body saying, we didn't take enough of a break. So hopefully these 5 ways to take a break from work, you can put at least, I don't know, don't try and do all 5 at once, maybe do 1, 2 or 3 of them. Just try one to begin with. Because you definitely need to take a break. Thank you so much. I'm going to take a little bit of a break from the podcast myself. I'll be back towards the end of January. So I'm going to practice what I preach. Otherwise, you'll be like, Colin, why did you keep doing the podcast? You said take a break. So I'm going to be just taking a little bit of a break. I'll be back early in 2023 if you celebrate Christmas. I wanted to wish you a very happy Christmas. I hope you enjoyed the time, regardless of whether it's summer or winter. If it's winter, stay warm. I know it's freezing in the UK at the minute. It's going to be warm here in Australia. Have a fabulous Christmas. Have a fabulous New Year. If you don't celebrate it, enjoy the rest of the year. Make sure that you start January with a renewed vigor and energy. Again, thank you so much for listening, and look forward to talking to you in 2023. Ta-ra for now.